Akim Olufemi Gbajabiamila. God bless you all.
June 11, 2019, the Ninth House was inaugurated. It is now 3 years old. In that time, the House has passed a number of bills that have changed the face of governance. The House has also embarked on reforms that have had a positive impact in resetting the economy. Returning the budget to a January to December cycle, passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, the Electoral Reform Bill are some of them. In this episode of House Ticket, we shall review the Ninth House, refreshing our memories on how it all started and some of its achievements. My name is Dihelia Mamza, welcoming you to this episode of House Ticket. Please stay tuned for details after the break.
If we set our minds right, embrace each other in love and brotherhood, we will come through these troubling times. We will survive, we will recover, and then we will thrive. One nation under God, free, peaceful, and prosperous.
The program is House Ticket, coming to you on the NTA Parliament. Before we start the review of activities of the Ninth House of Representatives in the last 3 years, we will take a report of a recent activity from the committee rooms, where we had another committee on State of the Nation's refineries sat for an investigative hearing. Keep watching.
No, it's so that they will capture it.
The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on the State of the Refineries has begun its investigation by inviting the NNPC and its contractors to explain their various roles. The lawmakers were, however, not happy with the non-appearance of some of the company officials who were invited. The committee had invited the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, top management staff of Saipem Contracting Nigeria Limited, and the management of Technimo Nigeria Limited over their operations in the oil facilities. The company, Technimo Nigeria Limited, which was awarded a turnaround maintenance TAM contract for the rehabilitation of 2 refineries in Port Harcourt, was absent at the hearing. The lawmakers therefore summoned the managing director of the company to appear unfailingly before the pro-panel at committee's next sitting.
A motion had just been moved that Messrs. Technimo Nigeria Limited should be summoned to the next meeting. It's hereby moved that Messrs. Technimo shows up unfailingly to this house.
Meanwhile, the General Manager, Refineries and Petrochemicals of NNPC, Mr. Mustafa Yakubu, who represented the GMD, in his response to the queries by the committee, said that the agency did a technical survey of the 2 refineries in Port Harcourt before awarding the contract to the contractor, following the Federal Executive Council approval for the award of contract for the fixing of refineries. He added that the total contract sum for fixing the rehabilitation of the 2 refineries in Port Harcourt was $99 billion, including value-added tax, noting that the agency has not awarded any contract on the Kaduna and Warri refineries, but had done the technical survey of the facilities.
We have not awarded, but we have a fake approval to proceed based on our contracting process and award, but we have not awarded to Kaduna and Warri.
What you read out, they said it's technical survey report. And Saipem, the technical survey report, definitely that I'm aware, is that you did the survey before you commenced the actual construction work. Am I right with that?
We did not sign the construction, the rehabilitation contract, so we did not start construction.
Welcome back from that break. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Ninth House of Representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria, was inaugurated on Tuesday, 11th June 2019. Activities for the inauguration include the election of the Speaker and his deputy, as well as the swearing-in ceremony of the 360 lawmakers in general.
I, Hakeem Olufemi Gbajabiamila, do solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to
to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank
you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sit down. Yes.
Following the inauguration of the 9th House, the 9th House held its first plenary session on Thursday, the 13th of June, 2019.
The 9th Assembly under my leadership is going to be a house of reforms, or if you like, a reform assembly. The reforms will be dished out piecemeal and at intervals so as not to shock the system. Moving forward, therefore, my dear colleagues, it will not be business as usual, and we will be shaking the table just a little.
Following this, the House has gone on to consider over 100 motion, bills and reforms, some of which can be described as landmark achievements. One of which is the determination to return the budget to a January to December cycle. For details of how it went about this, let us take our report as compiled and presented from our studio.
In line with the reform agenda of the House, the National Assembly Reform Roundtable (NARC) was initiated. It is a series of discussion to drive the process of reforms across critical sectors of the economy. Predictably, it started with a discussion on budget reforms. This was on Tuesday, the 3rd of September, 2019.
The National Assembly, at its inception, made a strong commitment to the Nigerian people to always act in their national interest while dealing head-on with the major issues facing our country. From that time to date, we have been working hard every day to gain the trust and confidence of the Nigerian people by making their priorities our priorities.
By initiating the Budget Reform Roundtable, a concrete step towards collaborative efforts to reform the budget system and therefore help Nigeria maximize the dividends of an efficient budgeting system was taken. Apart from the roundtable initiatives, other legislative discourse towards reforming the budget were initiated. One of such was a motion on the need to improve the budget process in Nigeria, sponsored by Representative Mansour Manusoro. This was on Tuesday, the 17th of September, 2019. One of the resolutions taken on the motion urged the federal government to automate the national budget formulation, execution and reporting process, even as the House mandated the Committees on Appropriation, Finance and Justice to convene a legislative summit with relevant stakeholders to improve the budget process in Nigeria.
Those in support of the motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it.
Still on steps towards actualizing a January to December budget cycle, the 9th House constituted its standing committees in good time to prepare for the work ahead. The committees were constituted in a special plenary of Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 2019.
This is a time that calls for determined efforts to achieve substantive reform and ensure that our country can overcome its challenges and take advantage of the opportunities that abound for economic advancement and social development. I trust that as you recognize these realities, your efforts will reflect this recognition and be motivated by it.
And at the heels of constituting the standing committees came the presentation of the 2020 budget by the executive. This was on Tuesday, the 8th of October, 2019.
Accompanying the 2020 budget proposal is a finance bill for your kind consideration and passage into law. This finance bill has 5 strategic objectives in terms of achieving incremental but necessary changes to our fiscal laws.
To accelerate the budget process, the second reading of the appropriation bill was taken and the House committed it to relevant committees for onward work, a move which was commended by the lawmakers.
Lucky that all the committees, standing committees have been set up and they are ready to go. So they will follow the calendar to achieve this objective of reversing to January to December calendar, which is good for the nation because it gives room for proper planning and we are impressed with the executive at the moment.
I'll give you an example. This procurement for arms, because of the budget cycle, the one that was passed was around May or June this year. So before you start the procurement process and everything, would have gone out. When you now start rushing again to do some of the amendment again. So this is a very good development.
For the National Assembly to have thought it wise to revert to the normal yearly system where budget will be presented early enough and to start from January and end in December is the best thing that is happening today, particularly in the 9th Assembly.
Committees immediately set to work on the 15th of October 2019, taking 2 weeks off plenary. Government agencies appeared before the standing committees to present their 2020 budget estimates and defend their 2019 expenditures. The budget was passed by both chambers of the National Assembly on Thursday, the 5th December 2019, while President Muhammadu Buhari assented to the budget on the 17th of December 2019. The assent to the budget into law by President Muhammadu Buhari at the end of the year 2019 to kickstart a January to December fiscal year in 2020 was described by the lawmakers as work in progress in establishing the needed collaboration and synergy between the legislature and executive in moving the nation forward. The executive, on its part, welcomed the development as President Muhammadu Buhari expressed his gratitude to the legislative arm of government for the initiative and dedication shown to revert the budget to a January to December cycle.
And to convey his appreciation to every single member. And he says boldly, and I repeat boldly, he hopes and wishes that the harmonious relationship between the National Assembly and the executive will continue for the good of the people of Nigeria.
The program is House Tickets, and we are commemorating 3 years of the 9th House with a journey down memory lane from inauguration. Earlier on, we saw the emergence of the leaders as well as the efforts by the House to make the budget more efficient by returning it to a January to December cycle. The program continues with a review of 2 important bills, namely the Petroleum Industry Bill and the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Please stay tuned.
The 9th House of Representatives acknowledged the receipt of a very important bill, the Petroleum Industry Bill PIB 2020, from the Presidency on Tuesday 29th September 2020 for consideration and passage into law.
This bill combines in a single tone aspects of significant reforms to the laws governing the Nigerian petroleum industry that were previously set out in 2 distinct draft legislation, namely the Petroleum Industry Bill 2020 and the Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill 2020. While I trust that the House of Representatives will, in their usual expeditious manner, favorably consider the passage of this bill into law, please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration.
Work on the bill started at plenary of Tuesday, the 24th of November 2020, when the House set the ball rolling with debate on the general principles of the bill for an act to provide for legal governance, regulatory and fiscal framework for the Nigeria petroleum industry, the development of host communities, and for related matters.
In this bill today, we have a new commitment, a new innovation, a new creation, where you have what we call the Upstream Regulatory Commission, under which you have some subsections, some institutional amendments that will help that sector to be regulated very well in consolidation of the previous responsibilities of the DPR.
Now there is going to be very clear-cut parameters and clear-cut definition of host communities and what is going to accrue to them.
The opportunities we had in the 80s, 90s, when we constructed a 5,000-kilometer pipeline in this country that transports petroleum products from the refineries and crude oil products from the crude tanks to the refineries and from refineries to depots. When, as at that time, Mr. Speaker, The area managers of NNPC who were managing the depots were like lords. If the PIB will cure it by way of the midstream, I'm for it.
2.5% of their previous year expenditure will be provided for the host community. In that 2.5%, it specifically stated that 75% is for development projects, while 20% is reserve fund, while only 5% will be used for the management of the trust fund.
The bill skilled second reading after a considerable time spent in the debate, and it was referred to the ad hoc committee on the PIB, which was inaugurated and chaired by the chief whip of the House, lawmaker Mohammed Tahir Mongono. Following several meetings, deliberations and consultations, the Petroleum Industry Bill got back to the House for consideration on Thursday, 4th July 2021. Tuesday, 6th July 2021 saw the House eventually passing the bill. There was a contention on the Host Community Development Fund, which the House pegged at 5% as opposed to the proposed 10%. The Senate agreed to 3%, which was eventually adopted amidst opposition. A passionate appeal by the Speaker, however, saw the House adopting the provisions and passing the bill on the 16th of July 2021.
This PIB will not suffer the same fate it has been suffering for the past 20 years. If there's any need in future, we can amend whatever there is to amend in future. But for now, it has been passed by the Senate. We have rules to follow, and it is those rules that we are following now.
The bill was signed into law 1 month later on the 16th of August 2021 by President Muhammadu Buhari. Another important bill the House considered and passed, a bill for an act to repeal the Electoral Act No. 6 as amended and enact the Independent National Electoral Commission Bill 2020 to regulate the federal, state and area councils elections and for related matters. The chairperson, House Committee on Electoral Matters, Representative Aishatu Jibril Duku, presented the general principles highlighting the amendments sought.
To consolidate on the gains of our democratic achievements and to also address the lacuna identified in the electoral legal framework. A typical example is the case of the Kogi State governorship election in 2015, where a leading candidate died after the commencement of polls, but before the declaration of results.
The floor was thrown open for contributions, and in doing so, the representatives raised various concerns, including the over the 48 hours timeline given to political parties to replace a candidate in the event of a sudden death during the election processes, the role money plays in the electioneering, as well as the use of electoral devices, amongst others.
The money stipulated there, it's not about the individual, but a system to say this is when you are running for governorship or president or House of Representatives, this is what you are expected to do. We have seen what happened during the last election, 2015. Was a typical example. Buhari, by his own declaration, you know what, but every Nigerian that supported him was subscribing, paying contribution, and that gives them ownership for the system. In America, that was taking example. You know the system, you know how they sponsor their own candidates. Every party member and those who believe in the program or the person they are sponsoring, they will subscribe. I think there's nothing bad in stipulating this program.
Yeah.
But how we raise the money should what?
Yeah. One of the things that take a lot of money are the logistics like adverts, airtime, radio. So perhaps there might be a way where the at least the not the private but the government stations will now have to allocate time for every candidate for free. Because that would take out a lot of the expenses and other things like that. And that's what I mean by thinking outside the box. But if you want candidates they must advertise on TV, they must advertise on radio, and these things, there's jingles, these things will cost money. So we need to figure out a way to balance it.
More contributions to the Electoral Act amendment also brought to fore the need for a better and improved local government elections, failure of card readers and time expiration for its use during election process, merger of political parties, vetting of sponsored funds, and capturing of Nigerians in diaspora. The bill got passed at second reading and was referred to the Committee on Electoral Matters, which has promised to expedite work on it so it can be passed, tested, and approved before the next major elections. The committee worked with its counterpart in the Senate to jointly consider the provisions of the bill in order to give Nigerians an efficient legislation for the smooth conduct of elections. They consulted widely with stakeholders, the electoral body being INEC, amongst other interest groups.
We remain committed to all the issues we have considered important in our legislative agenda, and without anybody holding us responsible, we have achieved most of those things that we have set as targets. And continue to advise us, engage with us, partner with us, and we will achieve those things that we have set for ourselves.
I expect also that we will discuss the weakness in party administration and in the nomination process that have often served to distort the electoral process. We should also together to seek permanent solution to the worrisome and increasing disruption of election using violence by politicians and their supporters.
We believe that there is no doubt that this bill, if passed into law, will further improve the electoral legal framework and deepen democracy in Nigeria.
15th and 16th of July 2021, the bill came back to the House for deliberation and passage. And even though the House sought to include the electoral transmission of results in the Act, the provision did not scale voting.
My amendment is to the effect that transmission of results under this bill, under the election, shall be by electronic transmission.
Deliberation on the Electoral Act did not, however, end with the signing into law of the bill by the President, as there were contentious sections, one of which was on the adoption of direct primaries as an option. The House, therefore, in January 2022, amended the provision and made 3 options available for political parties to pick candidates. These are direct primaries, indirect primaries, and consensus.
In favor of the amendment, say aye. Against, say nay. Nay. The ayes have it.
Aside the Petroleum Industry Act and the Electoral Act, the House worked on several other laws in tandem with its legislative agenda. As a matter of fact, on December 15th, the Speaker signed and transmitted 10 bills to the Senate for concurrence. One of the bills is the Harmonized Retirement Age for Teachers in Nigeria Bill 2021, passed by the House. Chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Rules and Business, Representative Abubakar Hassan Fulata, in an interview gave a summary of the House of Representatives processed and passed bills and motion to be over 1,788 bills and over 322 motions. This was for the year ending 2021.
Despite the coronavirus pandemic, we've been able to perform very well. We passed a lot of several bills, and as I told you, we have passed, we've processed over 1,788 bills, over 322 motions. This is a big feat, and the bills are at various stages of legislative actions. By the time we finish all this thing, the next assembly would have beaten the records of all the other previous assemblies.
This is the much we can take for this week's edition of House Tickets. Do remember to send in your comments, observations and questions through our social media handles showing on your screen. Remember to stay safe always. Many thanks for watching.